Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He's on with Fox's Bill Hemmer. He is talking about, and what Texas has been doing is basically, I think they have been tricking immigrants at the border. And, you know, the way that this works with the immigrants, for the most part, is you get to the border. If you're seeking asylum, U.S. and international law says that you must be afforded a process to determine the validity of your asylum claim. And if you are, and during that time, what is the most effective thing to do is allow people to go if they've got relatives, to be with relatives or whatnot. And then and 98, 99%, I mean, these are numbers from pre-Trump years because everything got jumbled in COVID. People would show up for their hearings. What they did in Texas, they decided to just like hire buses and send them to places where they didn't know anybody. Who knows what they, what kind of like fraud they basically told these immigrants to get on these buses and go.
It feels like human trafficking.
It is as a way of like pranking places or something, essentially. It really is.
With human lives.
Unbelievably cruel. And here is Patrick justifying this.
Were these big city mayors or even governors contacting the White House since this started, yes or no?
I wouldn't be aware of a conversation between two incompetent Democrats, so I'm not aware of that, Bill.
Okay. Last question. What Bill Malugin was reporting today is that he's seeing far more adult individuals than he has in the past.
Yes.
He's been down there for a year and a half. A lot of times he'll report on family units. What would it suggest if these are adult males primarily?
Pause it for 1 second. What it would suggest is that the Remain in Mexico policy is no longer in effect because a court now allows the Biden administration to reverse it. And so it would mean that we're going back to some semblance of we're reverting to the mean on some level of our just simply broken immigration system as opposed to our virulently punitive and cruel, extra cruelty and punitiveness, at least at the border itself. That's what it would suggest to me.
This suggests that this is all part of the plan. Again, you either have to be incompetent or dishonest. I mean, the vice president can't speak without giggling like a little girl. She can't say a sentence without giggling. And the president can't speak a sentence, period. They said they wanted to get to the root cause. Bill reported that they haven't talked to anyone in Central America or several countries, so that's a lie. This is all about bringing people to this country to take over the country, Bill. It's very simple. I mean, we're now on pace in his first term to be over 8 million people here illegally, not counting the gotaways, just the ones we apprehend. That's the entire population of New York City coming to America. We will be at 15% or more population in the next 5 to 10 years in this country of people who are here illegally. And these people in this line that your viewers have looked at this morning, do you want them to have the right to vote? Who are they going to vote for? This is a plan for the Democrats to take over this country totally once and for all. When you add, if he had 2 terms, or the Democrats have 2 terms, if you add 10 to 12 to 15 million people and you get them citizenship over this time and they get to vote, that swings every election. And by the way, why didn't New York complain? Why didn't he wasn't the mayor then, but why didn't anyone in New York complain when Air Biden sent 2,000 underage children to New York and dropped them off in the middle of the night at an airport? They didn't say a word then.
Nobody would have known about that if the New York Post or Fox News wasn't there at that point either. Dan Patrick, thank you.
All right. There's so many, it's hard to sort of parse out the lies from the just outright racism associated with this. But let's just start with the 8 million figure. Those are existing people here who have overstayed their visas, some who have crossed without authorization. And that number is fairly static. It's possible there's been times where it's been higher. I don't know if there's been times it's been lower, at least in modern times. Probably the last time it was lower was when the last mass amnesty was executed by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
One of the few decent things he did, frankly. And then I'm trying to scroll through his series of lies. When he talks about the 2,000 children who were flown in here, that is part of an organized process in which they are placing children in homes, relatives, some places in foster care. This is not just tricking a bunch of people, putting them on a bus, and then just dropping off in the center of town.
Right. Yeah, it was literally reunifying or some sort of unification, and also it occurred in like Orange County, upstate. Like he's talking about, like, oh, why didn't the Eric Adams or I guess De Blasio complain? It wasn't even in New York City. It wasn't happening.
Well, but he's in Texas, and he's just like, it's all.
Yeah.
And then this thing about voting. It's first of all, it shouldn't make a difference who they're ultimately going to vote for. It's also unclear that they're going to vote for Democrats over Republicans, particularly as they become more assimilated into the country. But we should also be clear. It takes years and years and years. And this is part of the problem. This was actually, this graphic was actually put up by, I think, a dude from the Cato Institute, of all places. It asks, it's a U-Government survey from July. And it asks, let me get this in front of me. It asks the question, if the sibling of a U.S. adult citizen applies for a green card to the U.S. from Mexico, how long do you think it would take for their application to be approved? I want everybody to answer this, actually, for themselves, too. It really is instructive. The options are less than 6 months. That's what about 15% of the total people asked answered. Next one is around 6 months, 14%. Around a year got the highest percentage of people thought it took that long, 21%. Around 3 years, 15%. Around 5 years, 9%. Around 7 years, 4%. Remember, the question is, if a sibling of a U.S. adult citizen applies for a green card to the U.S., my brother is in the United States. He became a citizen there, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe he was born there. I don't know. But I'm in Mexico. I'm applying for a green card. Incidentally, a green card does not allow you to vote. Not in federal elections. I think there's some localities that allow for that, residents. I'm not sure. Around 10 years, 2% of people thought it would take about 10 years for that person to get a green card. 1% said around 15 years. 1% said more than 15 years. 17% said not sure. They're just about the only people in this poll who have even a clue of what they're talking about. It takes no less than 15 years to get a green card if you apply for one, if you are a sibling of a U.S. citizen. It takes probably closer to 20 years. And the amazing thing is that the ideal time, they then said, what should it be? 26% said less than 6 months. 19% said around 6 months. 22% said around 1 year. 0% said it should be 15 years. Only 1% said more than 15 years. It is more than 15 years. I mean, Ronald Reagan is blowing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Redirected, but you better get on it. It really does make you wonder why. And he's saying now from Mexico, more like 40.
Jeez.
I mean, it really does make you wonder why our immigration system is so opaque to Americans. Like, I can understand why it doesn't necessarily, like, you know, I don't work in immigration. It doesn't, you know, people who are immigrants looking for citizenship, you know, don't, you know, wear a badge as they walk around. Like, I'm not, you know, I mean, I meet people who are, et cetera, but they are processing applications right now from 1999. We have a broken system. And I would suggest that the fundamental reason why we have this broken system is because there is a huge lobby in this country to get cheap labor. And they don't want, we do not want people to come in and become citizens, because then they will get the protections of U.S. labor laws, as anemic as they can be.
Right.
It is sheerly to exploit people. And out of that desire, you get, basically, they pour kerosene on the embers of the racism that exists in this country.
Oh yeah, and like there's this pose by the right that they're doing something for workers by the extreme enforcement by ICE, but actually that just is a sort of state-funded goon squad for bosses. Because if we were really doing something about that, it'd be bosses in cages for trying to use exploited labor and not kids. But basically what happens now is you have ICE looming over any exploited worker force, and the boss can say, hey, if you don't play ball, I just have to make one phone call.
Absolutely. It is just a leverage point. You would see, and you'll hear occasionally, conservatives occasionally will call for punishment for the essentially the bosses who hired them. And, you know, I think they are probably sincere nationalists, some instances racists as well. But it's also because they fundamentally don't believe in the idea of government. And they don't want their tax dollars going towards helping. They want their tax dollars to help as few people as possible, because they don't want their tax dollars. And the fact is that if you let 10 immigrants in, law of averages says there'll be one or two that will need some type of assistance ultimately. And they don't want to expand that pool. And they certainly don't want it to, their labor not to be exploitable or super exploitable. Let's put it that way.